anger can be a shield. It can be what protects you. It sometimes it can be fuel. But when anger gets to the point where it's hurting you more than it's helping you, you do need to learn how to let go of it.
Mhm.
And yes, it is important to forgive, but you don't owe somebody forgiveness. You grant them forgiveness when you are ready to do it.
Hello and welcome to the Epic Kate podcast. This is another one of my special Covenant player stories, and this is a heavy one. It's with a dear friend, Kat, who is non-binary, uses they, them pronouns. They had a very difficult time in leaving and being very, very ill. There were some really heavy things happening in this time, and so trigger warning, there are mentions of rape. While the conversation is heavy, the space is held with hope and with healing, and it's so valuable. This is for anybody who's been in Covenant players, who has been involved in a cult-like atmosphere, who has felt like they needed to suck up their health and their feelings to make everybody happy. People pleasing. I know a lot of people will resonate with that. I really appreciate you being here and being open to hearing this story, because there is so much power in sharing our stories and in the freedom of that and solidarity of that. The conversation starts out very light and chatty, reminiscing about being in at the same time and the kind of people we remembered each other being. So it goes into the health decline and heavier things further on in the episode. But I'll stop talking and let us get into it.
Hello, Kat. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here. For anybody who doesn't know me, I am Kat. I used to be known as Sharon. Long story, but at this point, I am a cat. So in my time in Covenant Players, I was Sharon Teaster.
I always knew you as Sharon Kathleen.
Yeah, that's the other name, Sharon Kathleen. I've kept the Kathleen. I just shortened it to Kat.
So yeah, we were in Covenant Players together. You joined the
We
year
were.
before me, correct?
I think so.
Yeah,
Because
there's
I
all
joined,
these
yeah,
people that joined
2004.
2004, and I waited a year to join. So I could have joined with all you cool people, but I waited
Your
a
group was
year.
also cool.
And you were like one of the first people that I was like, my people. And I remember singing together and falling into a bush.
I remember that. I also remember teaching you how to do a model walk because I used to do modeling, even though I'm 5'2".
The model walk. I forgot about that.
And you taught me the Napoleon Dynamite dance, which is very
Oh,
important information.
oh man, good times. I just remember you as this burst of energy, mile talking a mile a minute, so full of joy and love and expression. Just an unstoppable force. Like what's that superhero thing where it's like the un
Unstoppable force meets the immovable object.
yeah. I don't know how many well, the immovable object was Covenant players, hey?
Yeah, actually, yeah. So for the most part, I've tried to stay pretty like obviously where I'm gonna grow. I'm not gonna be the same person that I was back then. I've definitely changed my stance on a lot of things. I've changed my opinions on a lot of things, but my personality in and of itself has stayed mostly the same. I'm just more upfront about some of the issues that I deal with. So I am still I work hard to be cheerful. I also am naturally cheerful. I do like reach out to people and make sure, hi, how are you doing? Are you doing okay?
Yeah.
Um,
But
I
how long
forget,
back
but
sorry.
mhm.
How long were you in the org?
5 years.
5 years.
But I don't actually count as 5 years because I had to leave for 4 months because I got really, really sick and had to
Oh
leave
my.
a mission, which is part of why I wound up leaving Covenant Players entirely. I had to leave. I had to leave for a mission, and it was very touch and go on whether or not I would actually be going into the hospital.
Mm. Are those health issues that still pursue you to this
They
day?
they are. I do want to say these health issues were not caused by Covenant Players. Covenant Players did not help.
Mm.
Yeah, that phrasing was a little off. the lifestyle of Covenant players did not help the issues I was dealing with.
Absolutely.
So the health issues that I currently deal with, I am disabled. I have a rollator that I walk with. I really can't walk on my own at this point, not because of weight bearing. I just have no balance. So I have a rollator, I have a cane, and I have crutches. And it's a matter of which one am I going to use at any given time. I don't necessarily fall every time if I don't have an aid, but I never know on which step I'm going to need it. So it's just safer to make sure that I have something.
So,
Um,
what do you remember the point in the tour when you're like, something's not right with me?
so actually started getting sick in the summer before. So it was summer 2008. And it was just stress is really what triggered it. It was just so much stress. And it was the spring of 2008 was my first mission as a unit leader. And stress. And before that point, when I was exhausted or in pain or anything like that, I'd just push through. And before I was in Covenant Players, I was actually a competitive dancer and I did gymnastics and a whole lot of other things. So I was very used to pushing through and running on no sleep to do whatever thing. And that's easy. I pulled all-nighters all the time. And you just push through. You just push through and it'll be fine. And so I was kind of going back into that of like just keep swimming and it'll be fine. And it was just getting progressively more and more not fine. And I wasn't able to keep food down because of the stress. And that was the worst part. So between between leaving my family right before summer training 2008 to being picked up by my family in fall of 2008, I had dropped 30 pounds just because of stress and not being able to keep food down. And I was literally living on V8 juice and Gatorade and V8 juice, which don't do this. Like, do not do this. And so I and the people that I was on tour with at the time, like they knew that I was clearly not healthy. They just didn't know how to help. And it just hit the point. Like I called my mom and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like I can't even walk up the stairs. I just have no energy. Like to get downstairs, I was just leaning against the wall and letting gravity take over. Don't recommend that. That's a good way to fall down the stairs. And to get up the stairs, I would just like lean against the wall and like summon the energy to lift my foot to the next step and like wait until I had the energy to move my next foot onto that step. Like it was ridiculous. And so I called my mom like in tears because I just don't know what to do. And at this point, I was 22. 22 or 23. I don't, I'd have to actually do math, and I'm not going to do math. But basically, I was a young adult. I was still very much a baby adult. And so I just called her. My mom's a nurse, really, really good nurse. She was very in high demand. So I called her in tears. I don't know what to do. This is what's going on. And she's like, you need to come home. Your dad's getting in the car right now. He's on his way. So my dad came and got me, and while he was on the drive to get me, I had to call Covenant Player headquarters and let them know this is the situation. I have to leave.
Oh,
And
can I interrupt you real quick
yeah,
to ask how it was for your unit members?
they understood. Like obviously, it's a very very stressful thing because we were already a three-person unit, and now I'm having to leave.
Mm.
And one of the people on my team was my fiance of the time, and he'd been in Covenant Players longer than me. But the other person on my team was, I think she was still in her initial 2 year commitment. That relationship was not a good one. We're just gonna sum it up that way. But um, so I had to call, and I'm gonna go ahead and use names for the phone call of what happened,
Mm.
because it would actually was a good conversation.
Oh yeah, we want to share the good stuff.
Yeah. We talk enough about the bad. So when we talk about the good, we actually do want to use names to be like, shout out to this person for their handling of this situation. So I called and I was talking to Mark JT. And he really did take it in stride. The first question he asked, and he was very sensitive in how he asked it, but the like I don't want to say the first question because it wasn't literally the first question, but early on in the conversation, he's like, I need to know for understanding severity is, do you have a history of eating disorder? And I was like, sort of. That's a gray area. I've never been like this, though. This is not an eating disorder. This is stress. This is something else going on, and we need to find out what that something else is. And he was fully supportive of me taking the time that I needed to get healthy. So we had a person that he'd previously toured with in the past, and the two of them made a really good team. She moved over to be a 3-person unit with them and be his support person basically. And like bless them, they made it work. I'm very happy that they were able to make it
Did you have
work.
a busy calendar?
We had parts where it was busy, but it was also that area covered Kansas and Nebraska and Oklahoma and probably some other places I'm forgetting. So it could be a lot of driving to get to where you needed to go. Even if you're trying to plan it out correctly, it's still going to be a drive to the next major area.
All those
Um,
flyover states.
Exactly, especially Kansas and Nebraska. I don't want to say that there's nothing there because that's not true, but there's definitely areas where it's pockets. It's pockets,
Yeah.
and the
But I
drive
guess
to get
that's
from
not
one pocket to another is can be a lot.
But I guess that's not too relevant to the story. I just
No.
get curious about too many things. How long before this last tour was your China mission?
So I was in Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau, mainland China, and South Korea for the fall of 2006 to the spring of 2007.
Okay.
So that was a 9-month mission. Loved it. Really wanted to go back. Didn't get to go back. Still sad about that. Excuse me.
Because
Um,
I am so in awe of people who did China tours. Not no vehicle, just your backpacks and bags everywhere you went.
after that mission, the people on my tour couldn't say on a tour that I was on. They couldn't say in the pitching of covenant because you know how we'll like talk about how God provides. We've never had to sleep in the car or outside a train station. I was like, I've had to sleep outside a train station, but it wasn't because for lack of housing. It's because our train left at like 3 o'clock in the morning and we needed to sleep outside the train station. Or no, we. Sorry, I'm mixing up a few issues. That was a different issue. The one where I actually slept outside a train station, like properly slept outside the train station, is we didn't realize that the overnight train was not an overnight train. They let you off at the last stop of the night, and then you would get back on the next morning to finish. And it was the middle of like literally the only thing in this area is the train station. That's it. So we just had to sleep outside the train station.
Oh
That
gosh.
was fun.
So
It actually
there's
was.
there's there's a possibility that these extreme circumstances was kind of the beginning of all of your health issues, hey?
Yeah. So what it turned out to be was fibromyalgia, which is triggered by stress. We're also lupus-like syndrome. And the reason I say it like that is both my grandmothers had lupus. I have pretty much all of the lupus symptoms, but I don't have the ANA marker. And you cannot be diagnosed with lupus unless you have that stupid marker.
Mm.
So finally, my rheumatologist was like, we're just going to treat you as though you have lupus and see how you respond to the treatment. And it turns out I respond to the treatment.
Mm.
Treat me as though I have lupus. Thank you. So, but all of these things, I also have psoriasis, which is not related to the mobility and stuff, is related to autoimmune issues,
Mm.
pain, etc. All of these things, the flares are triggered by stress.
And the stress of being a unit leader, I hated being a unit leader in the US for the stress. I felt like the burden was so much heavier on my back of you have to get playdates, you have to make money, you have to send money to the
Yeah.
office.
I have a severe fear of failure. And so that coupled with depression and undiagnosed depression at the time.
Mm.
Um, Also, I have since been diagnosed with autism and OCD and various other things. So all of these things combined, I just want to be clear that this was not caused by Covenant players. We have just realized that this is stuff I've been dealing with my life.
And you have a
particularly
name,
the OCD. Like,
and you have a name for it now.
and now I have a name for it, and it's not just me being weird. It's that my brain is just working in a different way, and that's okay.
Mm.
So the OCD really is what triggered the fear of failure, or maybe not triggered, but like constantly feeling like I was messing up and like I was failing. Messed with the OCD, and the OCD messed with it back. Like it was just a perfect storm. And on that particular mission, gosh, okay, so we had a very, very frustrating thing, right? So we're doing Anybody Know the Way, where at the end of Anybody Know the Way, the other person on stage stands up and puts his jacket on, and you see that he has HS on the back of his jacket to stand for Holy Spirit. And every time I have ever seen this play performed or been in this play, that moment is always an ta-da! And the angels sing moment. And I wanted to see if we could make that just a little bit more casual. Like let's just not highlight this moment quite so much. Let's just have him cross around me, turning his back to the audience for this one moment, and see how that will work. And I literally just wanted to see how this was going to work. And the person playing the Holy Spirit, who was the experienced person on the team and my fiance of the time, because this is while we were still engaged, was just like, well, that's not going to work. I'm like, I want to try it anyway. Well, it's not going to work, but I want to try it anyway. And it turned into like a half-hour argument. And finally, I was like, would you just do it anyway? Because I am I am the director of this particular version of this play, and I am telling you to do it so I can see how it works. And he finally did it, and it did not work. I'm gonna be honest about that. But then he was really upset because, like, you just wasted half an hour trying this when I told you it wasn't gonna work. I was like, no. You wasted half an hour, because if you had done it when I asked you to do it, I would have seen very quickly that this does not work the way that I was thinking it might work. So I did not waste half an hour, my dude. You wasted half an hour.
So this was
would be a big part of why we weren't engaged very long after that.
So this was a pivotal moment of a trigger of stress for you?
Yeah, like not that particular moment, but just having to work with this type of person. And part of okay. I want to be clear in case this particular person or anybody who knows who I'm talking about sees this. I'm not trying to badmouth him. It's we weren't a good fit for each other for many reasons. It's not all on him. We both got passive aggressive in dealing with each other. He also was frustrated because he'd been in Covenant Players about twice as long as I had been, and hadn't been named a unit leader at that point. And I do think he was kind of taking it out on me. I think he thought that we would be co-unit leaders. On that mission, and then was surprised to be specifically told we weren't going to be. I also want to say for people being like, well, why did they even put you on the unit together? We did specifically ask to tour together because we were like, we are engaged. We want to see how we work together since we're hoping to stay in Covenant Players. Like, if this is going to be a longer issue, we want to make sure we can actually work together before we get married, which turned out to be a good call since it turned out we couldn't. But Bobby and Mark both sat us down to make sure that we really understood what we were asking for and what happens if we break up. Are we going to be able to continue touring together if we broke up? And had I not had to leave because of the health issues, I think we could have kept touring together. Our breakup actually was quite amicable, but I had to leave because of the health issues, so I wound up not actually coming into.
I want to switch gears,
Yeah.
if it's okay with you, to Covenant Players was a family for you. I remember you tearfully giving an affirmation after a play. I remember you just like sobbing at the end of showcasing, which was when we did plays for each other. We would stand up and take turns telling what we appreciated about it. And I remember
the reason I'm laughing is just because I cried all the time.
Yeah, and
all the time.
I remember you just being like, these characters feel like my family and I care so much about them, and thank you for bringing them to life and letting us find out what happens year after year. And
Yeah. I can't actually tell you which play that would have been because there
it
are a
was
lot of characters where I felt like that about.
yeah.
But
So
it
I
really
feel like that's
was.
kind of a good segue into being an emotional person, to how how maybe you started to feel like Covenant play, the organization, the rules that held the organization in place, not poo-pooing on any particular people, but where it started to feel like, oh, is this actually kind of culty?
It actually wasn't until I left. So, I'm just going to be upfront about the fact that I do think that at least by the time I was in Covenant Players, it had turned into, at the very least, cult light. So I would be talking to. I'm married. I'm married now. I've been married for the last 10 years. Oh wow, yeah, it has actually been 10 years. Where he hasn't killed me yet, so I think we're okay. But I would tell him stories about my times in Covenant Players, and he'd be like, honey, I think that this might have been a cult. And I'd be like, no, I understand why you think that. Like, we were told to be careful with who we tell these stories because people are going to think we're a cult, but it's not.
We weren't all married to the Reverend. Come on.
Like, it's totally fine. Like, I understand why you think it was a cult, but it wasn't. And then, so I was in it for 5 years. I was out of it for another 5 years. And at one point, I was just doing research on cults. I don't even remember why. I just was. And like just learning what exactly the foundation of what makes something a cult and what doesn't. And like looking into that. And that's when I'm like, this might have actually been. And so I turned to Colin and I was like, I think maybe it might have been a cult.
Hmm.
And he just looks back at me and goes, really? You think?
I have a question, and I don't know
Mhm.
if it's putting you on the spot or anything, but why do you think lots of Covenant players, former Covenant players after the fact, feel the need to research and see if it was? Like
I think it's
what
because we
difference does it make?
recognize. Mm. So for me, having a label to put on things is actually really helpful. Like we were talking about this with the fact that I am autistic and stuff like that, and finding out like I'm not a broken giraffe. I'm sorry, I'm not a broken horse. I'm just I'm just a giraffe, and it's okay to be a giraffe. So having a label to put on experiences, and the other thing is, and we were talking about this before we started recording. I'm going to go ahead and bring it up now.
Yeah.
Of um, it's really important for victims of abuse to talk about their experiences if they are able. Like nobody is entitled to somebody else's story, but if you are able to talk about your experiences, it is important to actually do so because so many times people don't realize they were victims until they hear other people's stories and they realize that happened to me too. What do you mean that's not normal? Because so many times we just assume that things that happen to us because it's normal for us, we assume it's normal for everyone. And so it is important to talk about things. It is important to name them and talk about it as what it is. So in one sense, it doesn't actually make a difference on whether or not Covenant Players was a cult, and in the other sense, it does. And finding out, was I actually in a cult, or was this just a weird situation?
Mhm.
And does it really help to know? Sometimes it does.
So what were some of the things, what were some of the clues for you?
So for me, the big issue was, I say the big issue. There are a few. Once a Covenant player, always a Covenant player, which is not in and of itself a bad thing. I do want to be clear on that. But if you don't leave in the right way, you are shunned. People aren't allowed to talk to you anymore.
Mm.
Like it's bad enough that you can't even perform with Covenant players anymore if you don't leave in the right way, but they can't even talk to you now. That's not right. Um, and so that was the big one. Um, The other aspect, and maybe it's just like me being uncomfortable. Don't know. It could very easily could be that. Um, the way that they talked about Chuck, and it's like they put him up on a pedestal. And I understand that that's going to happen with a lot of groups like this, like especially after the person is incapacitated, such as a stroke or dies. Like I understand we tend to look at things with rose-colored glasses. It is what it is, and I'm not saying that people did things wrong by that. I really don't want to sound like I'm casting judgment, but I do think it is also important to talk about the less than healthy aspects. Like, no, we shouldn't have been having to stay. I say we, I wasn't in Covenant Players at this point in time. I just remember some of the older people talking about the times in Covenant Players where they were having to stay until like 3 o'clock in the morning because of classes and showcases and stuff. And I'm like, no, we shouldn't have been doing that, especially when you have to be back in at like 7.
What about you personally? Like
Um,
things that you felt or saw or
it is really, really easy in religious groups to make a rule or statement or something and just say, I just feel led by this. Because how are you going to argue with that? Like, I feel like God told me this. I can't actually argue with that because who am I to say what God might have told you? And that can get into dangerous ground very quickly.
it's a thus saith the Lord light.
Yeah. So I also feel like a lot of people who did join Covenant Players joined really young. I joined when I was 18. A lot of the people who joined with me were right around the same age as me. A lot of us were joining right out of high school. And part of that is the fact that you don't actually have, student debt. You don't have commitments to things, etc. So like that's going to be part of it. So I don't even necessarily think it's wrong to try to talk to people who are about to graduate and about to become adults to see if this might be a thing you might be interested in. But you also have to be careful because in my opinion, the older person always has a responsibility on this because they're the ones who should know better. So you have to be careful to make sure that you aren't taking advantage of somebody. You
But what's
have to be
interesting is
careful.
that all the old people that we knew joined when they were young. Are we? So we're just
They
a
grew up
bunch.
the same way.
Yeah.
And so like yeah, and like a lot of the same things can be applied to toxic relationships, etc. It's not specifically to this specific thing, but to me, the person who has more power always has the responsibility of that power to
Mm.
not take advantage of it. That includes whether it's a romantic relationship and the person who has a better career and more money, or a position of power over somebody, or a business relationship like being a unit leader over a group of people. You have the power over these people.
Did you did you feel that you were taken for advantage of at points
I
along
do.
the time?
So my first unit was fantastic. My first unit leader was amazing. Love her.
Who was it?
Julie.
Julie.
Um,
Julie
Julie.
Matthews?
Yeah, I was trying to think of the new name.
She was
No, she's
Julie
been married for a
Cunningham.
while, but she was not Julie Matthews yet at the time.
No, she was
Um,
Julie Cunningham, and she
she
was
was fantastic, and she put up with a lot of my crap. Like, I'm gonna be honest about that.
dude. She was my husband's first unit leader.
So he knows. Like, she really is great. And then my next two missions were not great. I will come back to that in a moment. My next mission was with Larry Hauser. I love Larry Hauser, would tour with Larry Hauser in a heartbeat at any given time. And then my last mission was with Chris. She was Chris Wheeler at the time. I believe she's gotten married since. And she was also a great unit leader. So, by and large, the great unit leaders far outweigh the not so great ones. Now we're going to loop back to the second and third mission. So my second unit leader, before the mission, we were really good friends. after the mission and after healing, we were good friends. We are actually still friends. We don't talk as much as I would like. We do stay in touch over Facebook. But so I don't actually have any issues with her. I think she was also very young, and I think she was dealing with the situation as best she could, and how she handled it was not great with us. Um, I don't judge people. I don't have condemnation for the people who put her in charge of the group, because there's no reason it shouldn't have worked. And for the most part, our group did work well together. I just She was not the best unit leader for us. Mission after that was hard. Despite not being the newest person in Covenant Players on my team, I was treated like I was. It was just very much of like, well, the other person can handle it. Um, and except for the time where I had no voice because it turned out I had strep throat, and they gave me a singlet to learn in less than 24 hours. And I was told, don't worry, we'll make sure that you have water on stage in case you start coughing. And I did have water on stage, but at one point I started coughing really badly and forgot my line. So I poured my water and I drank it, and I spent that time remembering my line, and then was insulted by one of the unit leaders for forgetting my line and having that big long pause. And I was like, you literally gave me the water for what I needed the water for. Like, I was not drinking the water in order to give myself time to think of the line. I was drinking the water because I needed the water, and it happened to give me time to think of the line. So it was just like things like that, and like just constant, just insults to my intelligence, insults to me as a person, um, just constant grinding down and grinding down and grinding down. And the problem, I mean, that in and of itself is a problem. The problem is I can recognize that he was kind of doing it to find out what I cared enough about to stand up for. So he was trying to find out what I actually cared about. But for me, I grew up in an abusive situation. And if you try to argue back, you're in much worse trouble.
Mm.
And if you if you try to push back against anything like that, it just makes things a billion times worse. And on the heels of the previous mission, so it's just I was just very much of just take it and survive.
And so he
And
was like, "Oh, this spineless little jellyfish."
yeah, um, and like the one time that he backed off was we were having a discussion about martial arts, and I commented on how I had been I'd done Kempo karate once upon a time for a very short amount of time, and was like, and I got my yellow belt. And he's like, well, you couldn't, because one of my friends was in karate for however long, and it took him this long to get his black belt. And I was like, that's because it's harder to get the higher belts. It's easier to get the lower belts. And he goes, well, that still doesn't seem right. I'm like, well, just because you're stupid doesn't mean it's right. And walked off. And I do actually feel bad about it. Well, like, that's when he realized that he'd been pushing me a little too much.
It's really, really a hard thing in Covenant players when you're just forced with these people for this long, and you don't know how to get your personalities to mesh up, and sometimes they just plain don't.
And it's okay. Like it is
Yeah,
actually okay for a person, as long as you survive. It's okay.
yeah.
Like I am loud. I am energetic. I talk a lot. Like this is what it is. And obviously, if you tell me, Kat, I'm really like I am dealing with a migraine. I really need you to tone it down. I will do my best to tone it down. But if it's just, could you just not be you for the next 6 months? Yeah, I feel like we need to have a compromise here. Like, let me be me some of the time, and I'll like give me outlets for me to be me. Like,
So is that a thing that you felt like your personality had to be kind of stripped down and rebuilt in
Yeah.
the image of Covenant players' perfection?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. And the other part is before I got sick, I really found my value in what I could do. So, like volunteering for, especially during training, volunteering for all of the shifts for anything. I would volunteer. Like it got to the point where at one point somebody's like, "We need somebody to volunteer for childcare," and no, it cannot be Cat. So, like when that is actually part of the actual announcement, you've probably signed up for childcare too much.
Hmm. So I think it would be good to switch gears
Mhm.
to um, let's talk about finding healing.
So it did take a little while. Even after I left, I really wasn't. I would be upset about situations. I wouldn't. I wasn't upset about the whole thing. I would be upset about particular ways that I've been treated at particular times. And in some ways, I'm still like not upset. It's been long enough. It's been Jesus. It's been 20 years. So
But
no, I'm not still upset.
there's
But
things that niggle.
yeah, um, just and it's usually like the little comments is what burrows under your skin and digs in most for me.
Mm.
Because I can handle somebody just being a dick. What digs in is like just the little stuff, just the little stuff. Also, some of the big stuff. Edit this out if you need to. So we'll just talk about the situation and edit as needed. Um, between one of my missions and break, and then going back for one of the trainings, I had a whole situation go down. A lot, a lot happened in a very short period. While I was home on break, I was date raped
Mm.
and was not handling this well. Going to be honest about that, was not handling it well. And then at training, um, a situation happened with somebody, and I did not know how to put boundaries in. But so I did not actually address it with that person. I instead went to some of the people in charge to be like, boundaries were crossed. I don't know what to do. And they stepped in and addressed it with him, but they also were like, "But what did you do to encourage this?" Yeah. And I internalized it a lot. And a lot went like, and it wasn't until I was talking with you, I think not last summer, but the summer before. Sorry, I promise I'm okay. I promise. Uh, but I was talking with you about the situation because I was like, I don't know if I ever actually told you what actually happened, but like, here's my side of the story of everything that happened with this person. And I promise I'm okay. I'm just emotional. It's fine. Um, I'm telling you about it, and I've been minimizing it for however long it's been. I don't actually know how long it's been at this point. I'm not going to give a number because then we can actually track down when things happened, and I'm trying to keep it not. But however long it's been closer to the 20 side of years than the 10 side of years. We'll put it that way. And I've still been spending that almost 20 years minimizing it and making it less than what it was. And it wasn't until I was talking to you about it and I explained it to you and I told you exactly what happened and you called it rape. And even in that conversation, I was minimizing it. And I was like, no, it wasn't rape. It was, just this. And you're like, no, this is what you just told me. That is rape. Just saw my face and was immediately like, he immediately went to Mark and Bobby and were like, you need to change things around. You are not. I don't know what happened, but something has happened. You are not making Cat tour with him. So our unit was announced and it was just me and Larry and we'll be getting a new recruit. And and that's how I found out I was not going to be touring with this person. Um but like so the handling inside Covenant players of that situation, and to be clear to them, they did not actually know the entire situation. I did not tell them the entire situation. All I told them that was the boundaries were crossed. I told them a little bit more than that, but like that's basically what it boils down to. I did not, so they were not aware of how bad it was.
How dumb can you be to have to know a boundary is crossed and to still assign to the same team?
I think part of
That's
it was
like
that
incompetent to the point of
he,
evil.
I, so there's a web comic, and I'll find it and send it to you. But basically, it is about how a lot of times victims rewrite what happened to make it not what it was. It starts off with they don't give trigger warnings for eggs. Like that's literally the start of the web comic. And basically what it is after she was raped, she made her rapist breakfast because you don't make breakfast for your rapists. So therefore what happened was not rape. And I started rewriting what happened very quickly to make it less than what it was. And I did stay friends with him, and you don't stay friends with a rapist. So I don't actually blame people in charge for thinking that I'd be okay with it because I was still friendly. I was still hanging out with him. I just was hanging out in groups. I was still interacting with him in a positive way.
I see. I see.
So I do think that they should have talked to me about it privately.
Yeah.
That probably would have been
Is
the
there
smarter
any
thing to do.
reason why it maybe wouldn't work for you to tour with this person?
Yeah, like we'd
That's
heard
a
something earlier this summer about a situation. I just wanted to check on you about it because you seem like you're okay with them. And maybe Mark and Bobby and Nancy weren't actually told about the situation. I don't know if things were escalated.
oh
Maybe they didn't actually know. Maybe it wasn't escalated because it had been handled.
oh. That's a huge problem I have with the organization was the handling of people who did evil things and the
Yeah.
sweeping under the rug. It was a bigger offense to leave the wrong way than to be an actual herder of people.
Yep. Uh, I chair a convention now. I co-chaired last year. I'm co-chairing this year. And the big thing that I've learned in working with this convention is you have to document everything. You have to document it. Because and it's not even anything like this. Like to be clear, it's just like things like this person like yelled at somebody. You have to document that. Because that way when minor infractions keep getting broken repeatedly year after year, you can actually address it. But if you don't have it documented, you don't know that it's repeat behavior. And especially if it's a minor thing, so it feels like you shouldn't even address it. But if it's repeated minor thing, it should. Document everything. Escalate it to who it needs to go to.
Mm. So, in your healing journey that you are currently on, what have you learned about yourself and what do you have to say to other people, the people listening to this that are affected by your story?
So I've mentioned how much I love gymnastics. I promise this is going to make sense. Laurie Hernandez won silver in Rio on beam in 2016. And in the Golden documentary, which came out in around the 2021 Olympics, she was being interviewed about her comeback for 2021, which wound up not happening because of knee injury. But she was asked how she felt about losing gold in Rio, and she's like, "No, I didn't though. I won silver because when you lose by a couple hundredths of a point or whatever, because sometimes it is that close. Shannon Miller lost the all around by 0.012 of a point in 92 Barcelona. So, like, this is what I mean when I say if you have a question about gymnastics, I bet you I know the answer. But when medals are decided by that much of a margin, It's really easy, and this is from Laurie talking. It's really easy to look and say, like, if I'd just done this better, if I'd just like that's a wobble. That's a balance check. That's moving your hand in the wrong way. So it's really easy to point to those mistakes and be like, that's where I lost it. But for her, she said, I worked really, really hard to do the best that I can in the moment. And it doesn't matter that that wasn't the best beam routine I'd done. So I'm capable of better. It was the best I could do in the moment I was in. And I really tried to take that to heart. And all we can do is the best that we can in the moment that we're in. It doesn't matter if we've done better in other moments. This is the moment we're in. Do the best you can. There's another thing that I've seen of be your favorite self, because best self is unattainable.
Hmm.
Favorite self, it actually makes you think, like, what would your favorite self look like? Because like your best self is perfect, obviously, but what would your favorite self look like? And I do have to think about that. I still don't actually know what my favorite self looks like. I'm still trying to figure that out. Um, and then the other part is, sorry, I have like so many little things that I carry with me and hold on to just remind myself sorry, it's not gonna be okay because like not everything is perfect and things are okay. Like honestly, my life is pretty good. My body sucks. Like I'm gonna be honest about that. But my life is pretty good. And while I've had really bad pain lately, I've actually had really great mobility. I'll take the pain. I can take meds for that. You can't take meds for balance. So I'll take the mobility. Anyway, sorry. I just take a lot of things with me and just hold on to them for as I need them. And I will say it's okay to be angry about a situation. It's okay to be angry at people for what they've done. Anger can be a shield. It can be what protects you. It sometimes it can be fuel. But when anger gets to the point where it's hurting you more than it's helping you, you do need to learn how to let go of it. And yes, it is important to forgive, but you don't owe somebody forgiveness. You grant them forgiveness when you are ready to do it. And you should forgive them before they die. No, I don't have to, actually, thanks. Um, it you also can forgive before they've apologized, but sometimes that apology is necessary.
Hmm.
And there is a difference between forgiving and forgetting. I'm very, very big on I wish them well, but I don't want to be part of it. I hope they're happy. I hope they're healthy. I genuinely hope that their life is better. And this is general, not specific. Like I genuinely hope they have a good life. I just also genuinely hope that they don't make me any part of it.
Hmm.
So like it is okay to be at that stage. And it's okay to be angry if you need to be angry. But when that anger is hurting you, let go.
Yeah.
And healing is a process, and sometimes it's two steps forward and one step back, and sometimes things come up, and it sends you back into that, 18, 19, 20-year-old self. I'm really not giving specific ages. I'm just saying this as like a baby adult self. Sometimes it sends you back to that, or your 4-year-old self, or whatever, and it's okay to be reacting in that moment. I'm also big on we are all products of our own lives. And a lot of us are products of our own trauma.
Hmm.
Sometimes we don't handle that well. Everybody has their own story. Everybody has their own reasons. All we can do is our best. And I do deal with a lot of mental issues. I have depression. I have anxiety. I have so many. And sometimes in a triggered state, I lash out at people and I don't mean to. And it's not my fault. I'm reacting from a place of trauma, but I am responsible for apologizing to people and trying to make amends and fixing it as best I can. I use the analogy of if I bump into a vase and knock it over and break it, it doesn't matter that it wasn't intentional. The vase is still broken.
Hmm.
And sometimes the way to fix it is to try to glue it back together, and it's not going to be perfect. And sometimes the way to fix it is to replace it with a new vase, and it's still not going to be perfect. The old vase is still broken, but at least you have a new vase now.
Hmm.
And sometimes you just need to be like, I'm really sorry I broke your vase. I didn't mean to, but I clearly broke it and I'm sorry about it. Like sometimes that's the way to fix it.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of other ways that we could go if we had more time. We
I
didn't
know
even
we talk a lot. I
yeah,
talk a
we
lot.
didn't even touch your spiritual journey.
Oh,
Um,
I'm pagan now.
the pipeline from fundamentalist Christian to queer pagan
Super
is
queer,
like
super pagan. For anybody who doesn't know, I am in fact non-binary. I am super queer. I happen to be married to a man, but he's recognized the fact that I probably would have been I probably am actually more of a lesbian. I just was. I do like guys. I don't want to make it sound like I don't, but I actually do like girls more. But heteronormativity and when you get older, you're gonna get married and have a husband and all of that. So like
oh yeah.
benefited him, but but he's the one who pointed out that I do like girls more, and I was like, oh, that is actually accurate.
But maybe another time we can if
Yeah,
you feel really excited about that, and maybe if you people listening to this would leave a comment saying yes, we would love to jump into the spiritual evolution story of the cat.
because there's been a lot of evolution on that. I'm gonna be honest. It is
Nice.
enough for a full podcast
I
episode.
believe it. I guess that's why we didn't even dip our toes in the water because we knew it was too much. But I think that this is a good place to say goodbye for now. Thank you so much for being so honest and raw and just real. I have so much just love and respect and admiration for you. And so the way that I end my conversations is I give hugs.
Hugs.
Hugs. If you have a blog or website or anything you'd like to plug, you can take a sec to do that.
I can plug my
Huh?
convention. That's probably the biggest thing I work on.
So if you're finding yourself in Ireland,
It's actually online as well. It's
oh, cool.
international because we picked
And
up.
it's to do with writing, correct?
It's just sci-fi and fantasy in general. So
Oh,
it's fans of things as well as writers, or
okay.
just creators in general. So it's called Octocon. I can send you the link. It's my favorite convention, and it's why I started volunteering with it, and now I'm in charge of it.
Nice.
Again, like if you have any questions or follow-ups, anything like that, like I'm genuinely happy to do
So
things.
people could like
My
email you if
Yeah,
or reach out on social medias.
yeah.
Cool.
I'm happy to have my Facebook shared.
Normally, I end the conversation with thank yous and goodbyes, but I forgot that this time. But a huge thanks to Kat for coming on and sharing. It's a takes so much courage to talk about these vulnerable things and to see the value in that, to know that it's for the other people out there that haven't gotten the healing, that haven't been heard. To choose to be heard and to say this is what happened to me and I'm on the other side of it. I just can't think of anything more powerful than that. Which is a good segue into me sharing about the thing that I am building, which is Clearing the Creative. It's another podcast that I have where people dive into their issues of what's blocking that creative thing they want to do, their voice. How do they take the things that happened to them and the conclusions they reached and the journey that they've been on, and how do they package it to sharing with the world, to finding other people who resonate? How do people take what they've learned and make it accessible so they can help other people do the deeper work? Sometimes it's helping people do the deeper work. Sometimes it's, wanting to do a vlog, wanting to share the journey. Clearing the Creative is for people who are asking these questions, who have been feeling the pull to do this thing and they don't know how, and it's bugging them. I want to be the help. I want to be the encourager, the friend, the supporter who gives practical support, who helps get to the root of the bigger issue that is the reason for the block. And that's what we do in the podcast. I've been doing YouTube and podcasting for a long time, it feels like now. So with all the experience I've gained, all the mistakes I've made, and just the gift that I have, I can give advice for things that people can do right away to get going with the project. And I've done it for lots of friends, and every time it feels so exhilarating. It's such a joy-giving thing to help people find their voice and to get their project going. A thing that I would really love for that to evolve into is to be a regular coach, like every other week or every month, to check in, to give advice, to give encouragement, to be that person that is there for them. So you can go to clearingthecreative.com and you can find my encouraging blog. Yeah, vlog is video, blog is not. I've got a blog over there and share some encouraging thoughts for people on a creative path and a creative spiritual journey path. Yeah, that's my little commercial for that. For the people that are here from Covenant Player / other Christian fundamentalist whatever backgrounds that are struggling, your struggle matters. Healing, as you know, is not an overnight thing. It took so many years of being in it before you got out. It's going to take so many years to process it, and there's not a right or wrong way to do it. You are doing your best. We are doing our best. And it's scary to share these conversations, honestly, because it's like, oh gosh, what if people get mad at me? What if people recognize themselves? But it's got to be more valuable to share it for the people that need to hear it than to think about the fear. This has been the Epic Kate podcast. I do a lot of stuff here, diving into spiritual journeys, diving into other kinds of journeys of healing, journeys of hope, and it's a project that I love so much. And you're here, still here, after we've reached almost an hour, because maybe you love it too. I'd love it if you'd let me know if you love it, or how you love it, or what you get out of it, because it's easy to get discouraged, I tell you what. So if you don't want to leave a comment on YouTube, you can message me. I treasure messages about this work. I treasure them. And if you would like to provide some monetary thanks and support for this channel, for the work that I'm doing in life, there is a PayPal link down in the description of this video. That is there if you feel so led. Okay. Thank you. Bye.